For years, Diddy has been the center of a storm so thick it's hard to tell where the smoke ends and the fire begins. Publicly, he's danced between mogul and mystic, reinventing himself as Brother Love, the peaceful visionary. But behind the velvet curtains of celebrity, the whispers have turned into screams. And now, those screams are coming from places he can't silence anymore. From luxury hotel rooms to closed courtrooms, the stories are pouring out, and they all seem to circle back to the same twisted stage. Kim Porter's death in 2018 was ruled as pneumonia. On the surface, it looked tragic but natural. But then came the uneasy murmurs. People who knew her, loved her, and had stood close to the madness began to raise their eyebrows. Her ex, Al B, sure, didn't bite his tongue. He flat out said something was off. That Kim didn't just pass, that maybe she knew too much. And when you line up the dots between her and what we now know, suddenly, pneumonia doesn't sound so convincing. Cassie Ventura's lawsuit in late 2023 kicked the floodgates wide open. It wasn't just a breakup story or a messy separation, it was a horror film. She painted a picture of a man obsessed with control, humiliation, and power. Cassie didn't just say Diddy hit her, she described freaky setups involving male escorts, drugs, inflatable pools filled with baby oil, and scenes that wouldn't feel out of place in some underground tape labeled "Do Not Share." It was sick and it was detailed, and she wasn't alone. After Cassie came forward, dozens of others followed by one, different faces, same blueprint. Victims described being filmed in silence. Some were women, some were men, some were minors. One woman, still unnamed, said she woke up in a bathroom unable to move after being flown in on a private jet. Another, just 16 at the time, said Diddy groped her at a party in the Hamptons. A former security guard claims he was drugged and assaulted in a van. These aren't wild internet theories. These are lawsuits, sworn affidavits, real stories. But what ties all these threads together, the part that really haunts this whole mess, is the suggestion that Kim Porter, beautiful, smart, and once deeply tied to Diddy, might have been caught in the middle of it all. That maybe she wasn't just a bystander. Maybe she was silenced before she could speak. Capricorn Clark, Diddy's former assistant, dropped a chilling detail. She said she used to book hotel rooms for both Cassie and Kim, stocked them with strange items, cleaned up afterward, and found handprints, oil, and traces of whatever had happened there. That's not housekeeping talk, that's cover-up talk. And here's the darkest part. Some are beginning to believe Kim was infected with HIV, that she may have contracted it from Diddy through the unprotected chaos of his so-called freak-offs. There's no concrete proof, but there's just enough smoke to make people wonder what kind of fire was burning behind closed doors. Diddy's public persona is collapsing like a cheap set. He can deny all he wants, but the internet doesn't forget, and the court of public opinion has already started deliberating. And while the actual courts may let him walk on technicalities, stories like Cassie's and perhaps Kim's don't fade that easy. Because when the man you once trusted, once loved, becomes the nightmare you're afraid to name, that doesn't leave your soul quietly, and that's the story people are finally brave enough to tell. Cassie wasn't just exposing a toxic relationship, she cracked open a vault filled with years of disturbing behavior that had been dressed up in fame and filtered through the lens of success. What she described wasn't an eccentric superstar's odd private life. It was something much darker. Picture this. She's in a hotel room, dazed from being an inflatable pool full of baby oil in the middle of the floor. Male escorts paid to perform in front of her. Diddy watching, recording, participating. This wasn't sex. This was performance for a predator. She talked about infections, about trying to flush them out with water, about how even antibiotics stopped working. She wasn't alone in that either. Other women spoke of the same pattern, the same rituals, and every time the common thread was Diddy, pulling the strings, filming, manipulating, staying in control. The male escorts, they gave their own testimonies. Some said they were confused. Why were they being directed like actors in a movie? Why did the scene feel less like a night of pleasure and more like a ritual? One of them said it plainly, this wasn't about her, it was about him. And that's where it really gets twisted. Because if Diddy wasn't doing this for fun, then what was the goal? Control, blackmail, fear. That's what people keep saying. Victims said they were recorded without consent, then threatened afterward. Some said they were paid off. Others stayed silent for years. Until now. Then there's the anonymous Syracuse student. She thought she was getting an opportunity studio time with a major figure in the music industry. Instead, she ended up in a recording studio barely able to walk, with men circulating a video of her days later. She didn't even know it had been filmed until her friend told her. That kind of betrayal doesn't come from a stranger. It comes from someone who knows they can get away with it. And just when you think it can't get worse, another woman comes forward, only this time she says she was assaulted by Diddy and Aaron Hall. She said they took turns, that it was violent, and that it happened again just days later. That kind of pain doesn't fade. It lingers in the body. It shows up in flashbacks, in nightmares, in every quiet moment. But the most chilling testimony might be from the minor. She said she was flown out from Detroit at a studio in New York and sent back like nothing happened. That's not just sick, it's coordinated. That requires a team, a plan, resources. You don't just fly a child across the country and assault her without knowing you're protected by money and power. Even men weren't spared. A security guard said his drink was spiked and he woke up violated. Another man said he was just a teenager when Diddy started touching him at a party. And one more guest at a 2021 party said he woke up paralyzed while being attacked by several men with Diddy right there. That level of depravity is almost hard to believe, but the details are too consistent, the patterns too exact. Capricorn Clark, the former assistant, wasn't just a witness, she was part of the machinery. She arranged the rooms, saw the aftermath, knew the schedule. And she didn't just see the victims, she saw Kim. She booked her rooms too, stocked them the same way, cleaned up the same traces, and if Kim was being put through the same things Cassie was, then her death starts to look a whole lot less like a tragedy and a whole lot more like a cover-up. Chris Todd's book, Kim's Lost Words, hit like a gut punch. He claimed it was a collection of Kim Porter's private diary entries, pages filled with fear, paranoia, and raw confession. Whether real or not, it read like the diary of someone trapped in a house with a monster, the kind of entries where you feel the danger between every line. Kim allegedly detailed threats, abuse, secrets too big to share without protection, and the most chilling part, she said she made copies of sex tapes. Not just any tapes, videos that could bring powerful people down. Celebrities, minors, Diddy. The diary claimed she kept them as insurance, a desperate backup plan. She called him a monster, said he forced her into situations no human should be forced into, that she lived in fear of the day he'd snap, that he'd kill her to protect the empire, and then came the text message. 3 words to a close friend. He got me. That message was allegedly sent just moments before she called 911. She died not long after. The official cause was pneumonia. But people are starting to ask questions. Diddy and his kids slammed the diary as fake, called it a fabrication, denied Kim ever wrote it. But the lawsuits, the testimonies, the pattern, it all gives the book a sense of truth that's hard to shake, especially when Capricorn Clark, someone who lived inside Diddy's world, confirmed she booked hotel rooms for Kim, stocked them with the same strange items she did for Cassie, that she cleaned up the same messes, found the same unsettling remnants. It wasn't just a routine, it was a ritual. Then there's the medical side. Cassie talked about infections, about how Cipro didn't work anymore, about the pain and physical damage from repeated unprotected encounters with strangers. And if Cassie suffered like that, what about Kim? Rumors began to swirl that Kim might have contracted HIV, that her death wasn't from pneumonia but complications left unchecked or hidden, and if that's true, the idea that she simply caught a cold and died becomes much harder to believe. The image of Diddy being the center of these alleged freak-offs, coordinated, unprotected acts with escorts, drugs, cameras rolling, all done with a kind of disturbing precision, turns him from a celebrity into something else entirely. The testimonies say he liked to watch, to control, to film it all, that he kept these tapes not for fun, but for leverage. That's not just disturbing, that's dangerous. Kid Cudi found that out the hard way. After it came out that he'd been seeing Cassie, Diddy reportedly flipped. Capricorn Clark said Diddy kidnapped her at gunpoint, demanding answers. Then Cudi's Porsche exploded in his driveway. Some say it was a Molotov cocktail, others call it a warning. Cudi himself pointed the finger. He believed Diddy was behind it. If true, it shows how far he was willing to go just to remind people who had the power. And still, more victims keep coming forward. Lawsuits stacking like dominoes. Accusations pouring in from all directions. Women, men, minors, each with their own version of the same nightmare. Diddy hasn't been convicted in a courtroom, but public opinion is already rendering its own verdict. The industry is watching. The fans are listening. And the silence that once protected him is now turning into a roar. Whether Kim's death was natural or not, her story, if even half of it is true, should have never ended like that. Because if what these victims are saying is real, then Kim Porta didn't just die. She was erased. And the man at the center of it all, he might finally be running out of places to hide.